a lot of times we tend to go way overboard because somebody's paying us. If you're giving somebody access to you 24/7, that prevents you from doing a lot of the shit that you need to get done. If somebody at your job or your client or somebody has access to you outside of those hours, it's because you've given them access to you. I was never concerned with sexism. I never was worried about being a woman because I knew I was Black first. That was until I got a Black boss. You can't stop people from sending the message, but you can stop yourself from responding to it. If you are available to anybody all of the time, they are not going to respect your time. Not giving people 1000% on the job that doesn't care about you, that doesn't respect you, is not being lazy. It's not doing a good job. A lot of people will mistakenly give access to people in this way and just fucking do cartwheels and flip-flops and somersaults up and around that job. And it's, you're not being reciprocated with anything. Hey everyone, welcome to the Coffee No Cream podcast. My name is Erin Braxton and I am the host of Coffee No Cream. Here on Coffee No Cream, we are unapologetically dedicated to Black women. And we share what I like to call Coffee No Cream moments, those things that happen to us Black women in business and in life just because we are Black. Now, today we're going to continue our corporate code series. We're going to be talking about the access code. Now, this is part 3 of the corporate code series, and I don't know when this series is going to end because, so many things keep coming to me and I haven't planned that far ahead. But as they do, I want to talk about it. And access code is the code that we're covering today. Now, remember, the first part of the corporate code series was the boundary code. This was all about protecting our energy. Protecting our energy. Not only are we putting up boundaries to protect from the outside world, but also protecting ourselves from ourselves, giving too much, overgiving, overdoing when it's not appreciated and it's not asked for, okay? The second code we talked about was the head code, and it was all about protecting your mind. People will say shit to you, sideways shit, and it will chip away at you mentally. It will chip away at your confidence. We talked about that, all right? And today, with the access code, we're going to be talking about protecting your time. Now, this aligns a little bit with boundaries, but I'm more talking about with the job. I'm more talking about how just because you're getting paid to do a job, sometimes they get it twisted and they think that they own you. They have access to you, all of you, at every moment of the day. We're going to talk about it. All right. Before we get into it though, guys, please like, please share, please subscribe. Your feedback and the response and the support for the podcast have been everything to me. So excited about everything I want to do with you guys, all the things I have planned. So it really means a lot when you comment and you engage with me. It helps me figure out what's my next move. It helps me figure out, where we're going to go next. And I have a really, really good panel coming up. The panel has been curated because of comments and conversations that we need to have. So I hear you, I'm reading, I'm engaging with you guys in the comment section, and I'm paying attention, and I want to respond to what I feel is needed in the African American female community, the Black female community, okay? Another way that I am engaging with you guys is in the Facebook group. It is a private Facebook group where we continue the conversation. We all don't want to come on camera and talk and show our faces. We don't feel safe. There are trolls everywhere. People are watching. And you think they're not watching, but they're watching. And I understand that it is not always comfortable for people to come on here and just spill. So we continue the conversation in our Facebook group. We do check. We do our best to make sure that that is a safe environment, as safe as it can be on Facebook. So for Facebook, If you are watching, the link is below in the description box. If you are listening on Spotify, the link is in the show notes. We also have the free educational resource tool. I'm going to put the link below or in the show notes for those of you listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And that free educational resource tool has over 1,000 free courses that Black women or anybody really can take that we've pulled from all types of universities and educational institutions. Free courses, free. All right. Now, some of them do have paid certificates, but the actual course is free. You can decide if you want to certify or not. Okay. And I think that's really it. That's all of the housekeeping that I have. So let us get into this episode, the access code. So the access code, our third code in the corporate code series, is all about giving people access to your time and how Black women need to protect themselves and their time by exercising the access code. This is all about time. This is about giving people access to your time as it pertains to work, clients, corporate, all of it. And we talked about boundaries, which was protecting your energy. And we talked about the head code, which was protecting your mind. Access is protecting your time. And it lines up well with boundaries, but it goes a step further because we're talking about the actual job and what you are paid to do, not about the energy vampires that just kind of bring drama to you at work. I'm talking about what you are actually paid to do and how do we navigate and balance what we're getting paid to do with our personal life and our personal time, and how we address when people want more access to you than they should have. In episode 25, we had Dr. Kimberly Douglas, and we were talking about Black women wanting to serve. We have always been put in the position to serve others. So this is what makes it very hard for us to price properly, because when you're so used to just giving and people expecting you to give, that just becomes second nature to you. And when we're providing access to ourselves, to our time, to our mental, our brilliance, everything, when we're providing access to ourselves, a lot of times we tend to go way overboard because somebody's paying us, because we know it's a privilege to be here. We know that there are not so many of us in these spaces. So we just do what we need to do because we're team players and yeah, we can do it and we're so smart. All that, yeah. Okay. But people take it way too far, and we need to protect our time. So I'm going to talk to you about ways in which you can do that, whether you work for yourself, whether you work on a job, in a career, corporate America. Now, when I first started The Rebel Geek, as you guys know, I had a bankruptcy in my rear view. I was building, I was rebuilding. I had started to create and build web environments, and I had this client that broke up with me last year after 11 years. We had a journey, and both of us were growing on that journey. But because they were paying me, they believed for a period of time that they had unlimited access to me and my time. When we started working together, it wasn't as intense, but over the years, I became more and more important to their business. They'd call me for everything. They'd ask me my opinion about everything. I was included in on everything because they were a web business and I was in charge of their web. So very important and instrumental in their business for a period of time. And I was working in my business. I was not working on my business because I was too busy working on their business to be working on my business. They had too much access to me. Calls, emails, texts at all hours. Okay. And it was expected that I was going to respond. Why was it expected? Because I responded. I trained them to believe that they can contact me at any time and I was going to respond. So if I didn't respond, it was a problem. So unraveling myself from that sort of relationship took time, and it took years for me to get there and do that. So I'm saying to you, Don't do that. Your time is so valuable. I have a friend that would say that to me all the time. My time is valuable. My time is valuable. Yes, it is. It is very valuable because that is not an unlimited resource. There's only so much time in a day, so many hours in a day, minutes in a day, days in a week, all the things, right? So if you're giving somebody access to you 24/7, that prevents you from doing a lot of the shit that you need to get done. That ekes into your family time, your personal time, your time with friends, all of the things. It got to the point with these people where I was just constantly in touch with them, but they were always pissed about the invoices, but they wanted me to be available 24/7. But I've said enough about that. Okay, you guys understand where I'm going with it. Once you get that kind of thing rolling, it's real hard to break that bad habit with them. But I did. It was a conversation. It was many conversations. It was action. It was me just not answering the phone anymore after I've told you don't call me on the weekend unless it's an emergency. It took time to undo the damage that I had done by allowing them to access me all the time. I remember it was so funny. One time she called me and I was moving back to St. Louis and I was like, God, can I just even move? I was in a Penske driving with my friend. We were somewhere in New Mexico. And I was like, I just need to get moved. I'm going to be unavailable for 4 days. Let me know if it's an emergency. And by this time, she had gotten the point. And she said, okay, I know you said to only contact you during an emergency. And I'm like, mm-hmm. And she said, the website had been hacked, and when you go to it, it was leading them to Russian Viagra websites, which was funny. I was like, okay, that's an emergency. And again, depending on what field of work you work in, there are emergencies. There are reasons where you might need to be contacted after hours. But to your clients, to your job, it's just like the mall. The mall closes at 9. You can't go to the mall at midnight. It is understood that you work from this hour to this hour. Unless it's an emergency, they shouldn't have access to you. If somebody at your job or your client or somebody has access to you outside of those hours, it's because you've given them access to you. You haven't taught them that you don't respond outside of business hours. When you are a single woman and you don't have children, a lot of times, and I've had this experience and I've said this, people will feel like they have access to your free time because why not? You don't have a man. You don't have kids. You can't leave because you want to leave. You can leave when you have children to go pick up from daycare. That's acceptable. But if you just want to leave because you're tired and you want to leave, it's less accepted. All right. So people have all sorts of reasons for feeling like they should have access to you, but it's up to you to nip that shit in the bud so that they know this is what I'm about. This is how I work. This is when I work. All right. Now, if you work in a different type of environment, which we'll talk about later, that's another story. But from the onset, from the beginning of the relationship, you need to establish that. Do not engage outside of business hours. If it is expected because they have made that requirement clear to you prior to coming on board or working with them, or, there are extenuating circumstances, that's a different story. But if you make yourself available to people and you're not consistent, they will continue to trample over your boundaries when it comes to accessing your time. So if they try to reach out to you after hours, you do not answer the phone. You get back with them during business hours. And it's a hard conversation sometimes you need to have. And if you have it and it continues, or they're saying your job is in jeopardy because you're not available to them at these crazy times, then that might be a signal that you need to start looking. But not being available 24/7 is a way to protect your health, your mind, just your well-being. It's not just about, I just don't want to be available. You need your own time to refresh, reboot, restart, get away from the job. All right. So set the boundary, let them know at the beginning. If you're already in a situation like I was, and you have to untrain somebody that they can't call you all the time, that's going to be a little bit more work. You're going to have to spend a little bit more time, but you're going to have the conversation. You're probably going to have the conversation more than 2-3 times to let them know. But the best way to tell somebody something is to show somebody something. And you can't falter. You have to be consistent. You have to take it seriously. If you don't take it seriously, nobody else is going to take it seriously. Okay? So your time and availability is controlled by you. You set the boundaries around that. You need to take it serious. Establish those boundaries from the beginning. And if you're already in a situation where those boundaries have already been trampled on and people are accessing you at all hours and all times, you're going to have to retrain them to not do that. And the only way you can do that is by showing them respectfully, having a conversation. Next, okay, assumptions and sexism. Really, my entire life, I was never concerned with sexism. I never was worried about being a woman because I knew I was Black first. That was until I got a Black boss. And when I was working in the ad agency and I had this Black boss, I was not given the same freedom and allowances as the white male that was working with me under this Black man. Continuing on with the story I just mentioned about, when you're single and you don't have kids, this particular person would call me at any time of the day that he wanted, expecting me to be on the phone with him for hours. I mean, there was no boundary. The assumption that he was to have all access to me, I could go on about. I remember my mom died when I was 23 years old. Okay. My mom's mom was still alive when my mom died. I remember being back home here in St. Louis, trying to organize the funeral, do all of the things. This man wanted access to me, had no respect for the fact that I was burying my grandmother. I was burying my grandmother. Didn't care, okay? When he would call me at night to talk to me or after hours, only if I had a boyfriend and he heard a man in the background, would he hang up the phone. It would go like this. He'd call, and if he heard like in the background, like male voice, it would be like, who's that? Who's that in the background? And it'd be like, don't worry about it, my friend. Whatever. I would be, say something like that. And then he'd be like, okay. And okay, all right, well, call me later. Okay, call me back. I mean, this happened so many times. If I didn't have a male, if I was alone, if I were by myself, he'd be on that phone all night long, just demanding access to me. Now, I was young. I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't have the strength and the know-how to cut that shit off. I didn't. And it was a constant battle with him because it's just like, I had to tell him many times, listen, I'm not a child. I'm grown. And that's another thing. When you are younger, people who are older who work with you will trample all over your boundaries because you are younger. They will not respect you. They will assume they can have access to you. If you were older with a whole family, a husband around, they wouldn't treat you like that. So this is something that exists. This is real. And more women are single and deciding, they're not going to even have kids, get married, whatever. We shouldn't even have to have this conversation. But when you are alone, the way they see it, they see you as alone, they will assume that they have the ability to access you anytime they want. Now, I dealt with this a lot with this particular person. It was disrespectful. There was a time when I was out in LA doing focus groups, and we had a whole team of people. That was their job, to conduct the focus groups, to provide the reporting. But I guess there was no budget for him to go on this particular trip. So he didn't go. So he was constantly calling me while I was out in LA, trying to make sure, constantly. It didn't even make any sense. I'm in LA on a business trip, trying to see what I was doing, wanting me to call and check back in with him back in Dallas. I remember he wanted me to call him the next day so we could talk about what people said in the focus group. Are you fucking kidding me? We have whole reports that are going to be written about this. I mean, it was just insane. So I remember telling him, I said, but it's going to be 6 a.m. He wanted me to call at 8. I said, that's 6 a.m. in LA. He's like, I don't care. So I had to get up and call him at 6 a.m. because he just felt like he was owed access to me. We had fights about it. Like, it was not a good situation. It got better because I kept pushing back. I kept pushing back as the time went on. But, ultimately I left this job. This man was very, very possessive of my time and access to me. We're, again, friends now. He could hear this and probably get mad, but this is my lived experience. This is my experience. I was sick. I tried to go home. He called. Where did you go? I went home. I didn't feel well. I had to argue with him for 45 minutes about why I had to leave because I was sick. So people feel entitled to your time. And what I say to that is nipping it in the bud. First time it happens, you need to be very, very clear. Listen, if you're a young person, you have autonomy over your time, and I'm here to do a job. I'm here to do a good job. I want to do a good job in my position, but I'm available at these times. And if it's not an emergency, I'm not available after hours or during certain times. Now, certain environments require a different sort of work routine and ethic. Advertising is one of those. We'll talk about that in a minute. But sexism is definitely a thing. I think that if I was not a Black woman, this Black man would not talk to me in the way that he did and try to do the things that he did because he was my ally in that space. So I was too young to understand and really be savvy to what was happening. But if I were to do it all over again, and I'm telling you, sexism is a thing. It is something that Black women have to deal with for sure. And I was very ignorant to it until I had a Black supervisor. And I was lackadaisical about establishing access to me, about limiting access to me inside of what I consider appropriate business hours. And I would say if this is something that you're dealing with, you definitely need to establish that early on. Just nip it, okay? Let them know immediately, this is when I'm working. Now, if you're inconsistent about that, that's just training them that if I keep calling, if I keep texting, they're going to respond. So just stay consistent in how you give people access. All right. Next, digital access. This is one that's hard because, we have these phones and people constantly have access to us all the time. And how do you deal with that? The client that I told you about at the beginning of my video, I talked about her constantly accessing me. She would text, she would call, she would email. And because I had trained her to access me and get a response from me, she did it all the time. So I was trying to break up that habit. And I had a developer I work with for many years. His name is Mike. And Mike taught me about boundaries. My comeuppance in my professional career, boundaries didn't exist. I had always worked for people where boundaries did not exist. Access was unlimited. I worked in advertising, so I was always accessible. So when I started working with him, he showed me real quick that my client's chaos and my chaos, as a result of my client's chaos, was not going to be transferred onto him. And he was very clear that boundaries and access to him was limited to Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. I don't know exact hours. No weekend time unless there was a real emergency, like the site went down or something really, really bad happened. I couldn't access him. I couldn't reach him. And I learned from him, and he was real cool about it. There was no arguing. There was no fighting. It was just like, no, I don't work. It was the weekend. I don't work. And because of him, I learned to do this with my client at that time. So she would be sending messages and emailing. And of course, I'm trying to untrain her because I've trained her that it's okay to have access to me like this. But we got there eventually, and she knew. And even if she was sending text messages and messaging me and emailing me, because she often would, you can't stop people from sending the message, but you can stop yourself from responding to it. So let's just say somebody sends me a text message on a Saturday. If I respond to it right then and there, they're going to know that if they send me a message, I'm going to respond. If they call me and I pick up the phone and like, what's up? They're going to know that I'm going to pick up the phone. And sometimes they'll call once and sometimes they'll keep calling to see if you'll pick up. People will test you, right? And if you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. That's just what people will do. So say somebody texts me and you want to respond. It's bothering you. You really just want to just give them the answer. I just want to respond. What I do, I respond, but I schedule the send. And then I've done it. It's off. It's off my chest and it's done. Because what I don't want them to do, even if they sent me an email and I'm just scrolling through my email one night and I see they sent me an email at like 10 o'clock at night and I want to respond, I don't want them to know that I'm up working at 10 o'clock at night, even though I have been in the past and I will be. I will schedule the email to go out the next morning sometime. I won't send a response at that time because even if they're in bed by the time you respond, this sort of behavior is telling them that you work outside of normal business hours, right? So Black women, our desire to give and nurture and rescue and save the day, we got to cut that shit. Because what I was doing when my client was doing this to me, I was basically her work mammy. One of my therapists told me that. And I was just like, whoa, harsh. But that's exactly what I was. I was always coming in, rescuing her, saving the day to the point where she just couldn't even function if she couldn't get in touch with me, right? Those people didn't give a shit about me. They didn't give a shit about me. They just wanted access to me. They wanted to feel like they had access to me at every moment. And I had to turn that thing around. So I stopped responding. I scheduled sends. You can do it on Teams. You can do it in Slack. You can do it on your text messages. You can schedule that response to go out when you want. Respond so you get it off your chest and move on with your day, evening, weekend, whatever. Next. So we talked about time and availability. We talked about sexism and how that can cause men to access you or think they can access you in ways that they wouldn't do to others. Let's talk about respect. All of this really ties into respect. This isn't even really its own thing. When people don't respect you, they will feel like they have access to you all of the time. And when you give people access to you whenever they want it, they will not respect you. In fact, the opposite. When Mike, my developer, wasn't available to me on the weekend, I respected him even more. People aren't going to be like, oh my God, I respect Erin so much because I can get her on the phone anytime I want. Think about it. Think about it. Think about it. You have a friend or somebody you've been trying to reach that's hard to reach. Think about that. When they call you, you're like, oh my God, they're calling. Whoever you're talking to, sometimes you'll be like, let me call you back because this person is calling you. They've made time to talk to you. I'm not saying it should be like that at work. I'm just trying to point out that you respect a person's time more when the access to them is limited. So there are times and situations where you might be working for a manager or somebody like that who needs to get at you about something at 10 a.m., 11 a.m., anywhere from 9 to 5, basically. But because they know that you're going to respond to them after work hours or on the weekend, they might put you to the back burner because they know they can, right? You have to teach people how to respect you and your time, all right? If you are available to anybody all of the time, they are not going to respect your time, all right? So again, consistency. If you're not available Monday night, you're not available Tuesday night. Don't be like, I'm available Monday, but then on Tuesday you get irritated, you're not available, but then maybe on Wednesday you're not available, but then on Thursday you're available. No, be consistent. Keep your time and access to you consistent, all right? That's the only way people are going to respect you. That's just my belief. Now, earlier I talked about culture. There are situations where you just work in a field where the culture sets the tone. And if you want to be a part of that, you have to play along. When I worked in advertising, when I first got out of school, we worked all the time. It's just what we did. We might be, and I did this many times, I would be driving to DFW airport to make the 10, I think it was 9:30. It was a 10 p.m. pickup for FedEx. Many a night. Completely all up in my personal time. They didn't care, but that's the price you had to pay to be in advertising. You might work in a culture that plays by those rules, in which I say a lot of this and what I'm saying goes out the window, right? But there's only a few, I would say a few fields that this is relevant. If you work in the entertainment industry, you work with celebrities, things like that, where people act like they're brain surgeons and they're saving the world, but they're really doing superficial, frivolous shit, usually the worst offenders. But oh my God, oh my God, where it's very client-centered, client-focused. The culture may be one where access to you is unlimited. You have to decide if that's the sort of work environment you want to be in, because you can't just be like, nope, I'm closed. I don't, only in those situations would I say you need to re-examine that. But if you don't work in one of those fields and it's not necessary or mandatory for you to be there like that, for you to be available to them, I would say if you can't balance people's access to you, I would say you probably need to start looking. And that leads me to my last little piece on access to you. And that's the mental access to you, okay? I saw somebody talking recently about performing at an A level or a C level. Now, this is really subjective on how you want to handle. This person was saying operating at a C level produces the same results as operating at an A level, all right? I'm going to say it like this. I'm going to say you can go into a job and operate at 100%, or as Black women usually do, or sometimes find themselves in situations where they're operating at 1,000%. Do you need to be working at 1,000% on these jobs? That's access to your mental space, your mental capacity, access to you in a different way. It drains you. It creeps into your health. It creeps into your well-being, right? If you give the job 1,000% of you, so that when you get home on your free time, you have nothing to give to yourself. Ask yourself if that's worth it. It depends. Do you see longevity with this company? Do you just come in there to get a paycheck, but it's a temporary thing? I would say do your best wherever you go. Do a good job, but don't overdo. It's access to you in a way that isn't like a tangible access, but it has tangible effects. Health issues, failure to reach goals outside of that work environment. Not giving people 1,000% on the job that doesn't care about you, that doesn't respect you, is not being lazy. It's not doing a good job. Not working to the fullest potential, because you're not paid to work to your fullest potential. You're going to work to your fullest potential when you're doing something you love. Normally, that's for you. Most people will. A lot of people will mistakenly give access to people in this way and just fucking do cartwheels and flip-flops and somersaults up and around that job. And you're not being reciprocated with anything. And then you don't have access to those emotional, intellectual resources when it's time to do things for yourself. All right. So you've got to limit the access that you give people when it comes to your mental access and your willingness to give of self. I think that's it. That's all I've got. I hope that was helpful to somebody. Remember, you've got to protect your time. Time is one of those resources that there is no surplus. There's no extra. We all have the same amount of time. So how we choose to use it is going to determine how we exist. All right. And if people want access to your time, if they're willing to pay for it, that's one thing. When people want access to your time and it's not benefiting you, that's when you need to ask yourself the question. Right? People have called me on a Sunday asking me to do something right then. I've charged them for it. I've gotten paid really nice money, but the understanding is I don't work on the weekend, So really examine how you allow people to access you, how you are overgiving of your time while also protecting yourself with boundaries, while also not letting people get in your head because you don't allow them to overstep and have access to you when it's not warranted or it's inappropriate. This all works together, guys. Boundaries, headspace, access. It all works together. So hopefully, guys, that was a word for you today. That is going to help somebody. And, let me know what you think in the comments. Please do share because I do read them. I hear you guys. I've got a panel coming and we're going to finally get into something that you guys have been talking about in the comments. This Black female on Black female thing. It's coming. I've got a panel where we're going to discuss it and try to unpack it. And it's going to be the first probably of many discussions around this because this is truly a problem. So stay tuned for that. It's coming. What else? I wanted to say, I'm going to do Third Thursdays live. So every third Thursday at 5 p.m. Central, I plan to go live. So stay tuned for that. That would be, I think it's the 21st this month. So there's that. And I think that's it. So hopefully, guys, stay strong, limit people's access to you. Don't give them 100% of you. Keep something for yourself so you can grow, evolve, and soar and do all the things and be all the things you want to be. And let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you in the next episode.